If you're sick and tired of getting ghosted on LinkedIn when you're trying to sell your product or service on the platform, and you know all of your ideal clients are actually on LinkedIn, then this video is exactly for you. I'm going to be walking you through the simple 5-step process that I use for myself and my clients to help them book 3 to 5 meetings on a weekly basis at the bare minimum using a very simple process. So with that being said, let's get straight into it. So when I first started to do LinkedIn, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to find a lead list of people and basically just go and try and sell people straight away. And this actually did bring in a couple of clients, but I've just figured out over the years how to actually go and make sure that I can generate consistent meetings. So at least 3 to 5 meetings on a weekly basis with highly qualified leads who actually have the real urgency to go and move ahead with my service. So I'm going to be walking you through these 5 key steps. So the first step is actually your profile. So actually making sure you've got a decent looking profile, and we're going to get into this and how you can make it so it's very easy for people to convert to actually go and book a call with you, and then build your list of your hit 100. So I just call this your hit 100, but essentially this is your ideal client list. And what I do is actually use LinkedIn Sales Navigator the majority of the time, having a tracker to set everything up and make sure that you can actually optimize and improve and moving forward. But the majority of the time, I get asked this all the time, like, what do I actually say to people to go and book sales calls on LinkedIn? And what I do is I do a 14-day outreach sequence. And that doesn't mean sending people messages every single day for 14 days. It just means that's the cadence of how we go and do the outreach. So it's a combination of reaching out to people on LinkedIn, it's engaging with people on LinkedIn, and also a secondary follow-up channel, which is really important. But before we even actually say something to anyone and actually pitch someone, that you must have a trigger and a reason to actually go and reach out. So I'm going to go through this and how you can actually use this for yourself. And then finally, step 5 is actually turning conversations into calls. So when I first started doing outreach on LinkedIn, I remember I basically just plugged, this was a couple of years ago, I basically just plugged my LinkedIn profile to an automation tool, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I basically just fired out messages to hundreds of people and just pitched them straight away. And I actually did get a couple of booked calls with people, but honestly, if I was using the system that I was using now, back then, I would have got about 3x the amount of meetings, just because when I was actually plugging my LinkedIn to an automation tool, where that basically just means you can set up a sequence and just fire messages out to people, I was basically just pitching people within that first message. So I was ruining the trust, and I wasn't warming people up to me or my product and service, and I didn't even know if they were in the market for my service. So it burns your reputation when you do things like that. And you can get way better results when you spread your outreach over 14 days. I'm going to be walking you through exactly how you do that, and I actually break this down here. So the first key step is actually to make sure that you've got a decent looking profile. And this isn't a video for me to just to lecture you about like how to design your profile and stuff like that, but it is the first battle that you're going to face. So basically, if your profile's looking something like this, like Matthew's, no shade on Matthew, by the way, but I mean, he's an accountant. So accountants, generally from my experience, they're not really on the LinkedIn too much for business development. But if you are trying to do business development, you're trying to book sales calls, and you're basically using the platform to reach out to people. If your profile's looking like this, where you look like a bit of a ghost, it's a bit ambiguous, like what you actually do. You haven't even got a profile picture there or a banner. If you're looking like that, it's really going to harm the amount of connections that you get and the actual responses that you get. On the flip side, if your profile is looking like either Jesse's or Phil's actually one of my clients, but Jesse's just a guy who I see on LinkedIn all the time. I just pulled his profile. It's very visual, and it's just super easy to understand what he does. And there's a few key points here, and I actually go through how to set up your profile and do all of these 5 key steps in the free training below, which you can just click the link below and it'll take you to just give your email, and then I'll send you the free training. But nevertheless, we're going to go through it here in a little bit less detail. But essentially what you want to do is have a picture of yourself, so it's just clear to see your face and not just some sort of random photo of you out and about. It's like actually got to show your face, so then people can go, oh, okay, well, he's a real human. You want to have a banner image. This is free real estate as well. Again, I'm not going to go into it too much here, but this is free real estate where your profile should literally be a landing page. It's designed to help people convert people. So a landing page actually is designed to, go and convert someone. So whatever your conversion mechanism is, if it's to actually go and book a call, if it's to go and download your free lead magnet. So for example, here, Jesse's got his company page linked, which is great. He's got his subheading here, but most importantly, he's got here a link to his lead magnet. And Phil, what we've done here is he's got a link to book a free property strategy call. So here, this is free real estate. Again, you're not having to pay LinkedIn to actually go and do this and build this, but it just is very easy for someone to go and book a call and see what this person's about. And ultimately as well, you want to have your job title here. So yeah, that goes without saying. Just go and have a look at some people who are your main competitors who have a good LinkedIn profile, or someone who's just got a solid profile, and then go and copy, take inspiration from it. Now, the second thing is actually building your hit 100. I call it your hit 100, dream 100, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be 100 people, but it's just your ideal customer profile. Now, you can use tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but I'll just tell you a quick story. So I remember I was reaching out to buyer's agents, and I was basically saying to them, I can go and help you generate leads. And all I did was I went onto LinkedIn Sales Navigator, put the job title in, and then I just thought, okay, cool, that list is good to go. And then again, like I was saying, I plugged it into the LinkedIn automation tool, and basically it was reaching out to all the wrong types of people because I didn't have the correct filters set up here. So for example, in the job title search, you can see here, this is a Boolean search string. So basically it means it's got your qualifying people in or out. So you can be very, very specific on LinkedIn. And previously I didn't do that. I remember reaching out to a buyer's agent, and I was trying to reach out to people in property who are buyer's agents, so the people who purchase property for other people. But I ended up reaching out to a sports car buyer's agent, and he basically was like, "What are you talking about?" Because I was talking about property in the actual sales message that I was messaging him, and then he ended up basically saying, "No, but I'm not interested in that. But if you want to buy a sports car, I can help you." So it was a strange one. There's loads of scenarios where I've run into where I've really messed up on the lead list, and it really hurts your campaign, especially if you're using tools like automation. But that's another video for another day. So the power of this is on LinkedIn. It's the only platform on the planet that I can think of where you've got someone's where someone works, you've got their years of experience, you've got where they're based, you've got what industry they're in, you've got information about their company and like who the company is that they work for, you've got their company headcount as well, so you can target people where your ideal clients, let's say you target SMBs, so small to medium sized businesses, you could target companies 1 to say 50 employees, for example. So with the filters like here, it's just so incredibly specific, and you can reach out to people who have just recently posted on LinkedIn. Again, I do a full training on how to actually go and find this list of people, and that is the major part of the battle when you're doing any lead gen campaign. Every single thing you do trickles from the lead list. And the third point is actually having a tracker and something, a CRM or something to actually go and track to see what's going on. Because if you've got a dream list of people who you're reaching out to and you're getting absolutely no responses, then something needs to change. But if you're not tracking that, you're just going to go day by day by day, just reaching out to people with the same shitty message or the same terrible positioning, and it's not working. On the flip side, you want to track if you are actually getting good results. When you're targeting people and you're getting some really good responses, you want to track that so you can actually double down on that strategy. So when you go and create a new list, or you actually trying to go through the rest of the list that you've created and you need to reach out to those people, you know exactly what's working. So again, in the training that I've got, I give you documents like this, but essentially you just want to have something very basic. So you can use, if you're using a software like Go High Level, you can go and track this, or you can literally just use a Google Sheet. So you just have the company name, first name, email address, if you can scrape that, where they work, and then the social profile, so their LinkedIn profile. And then, you want to track at least, I always suggest people to reach out on one channel if you're doing a lead gen campaign for cold outreach, and then follow up on another channel where they're most likely to hang out. So for example, if you're reaching out to accountants, you might use LinkedIn, and then you follow up on email as well, because they're most likely to be on email. email. And then you would have a link to your looms there, and then you can track everything, and then you can see if they're a good fit, blah, 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 any notes about the prospect. It doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to overthink that, but I just wanted to show you that. So the main bulk is actually figuring out your 14-day outreach sequence. This is how you actually sell on LinkedIn. So instead of you just reaching out to people and basically pitching someone in the first message, or sending someone a connection request saying like, hey, I'd love to connect with like-minded individuals, all that nonsense that people do, that corporate nonsense, you get put into a bucket of people who are either a salesperson, or it looks like you're kind of like using an automation tool or something like that. That is categorically what you do not want to happen. So for example, I always just tell people to leave their connection request blank, and it significantly increases the amount of connection acceptance rates that you get. But the main thing is actually having a trigger to reach out to people. So you need a reason for you to reach out to people, because if you just start the message with, hey, I'd love to connect with like-minded individuals, it's like, you know, if someone cold calls you and there's like a massive delay on the phone and it's someone from overseas, it's just hang up. So it's the same kind of frame of mind when you're on LinkedIn. If I see one of those messages, I'm like, well, God, this guy's going to try and sell me something in a minute, or this girl's going to try and sell me something in a minute. We don't want to get put into that bracket of people. So I call these triggers. So you want a reason to actually go and reach out. So maybe the company's just received funding, so then you would actually send them a message and talk about that. Maybe the company's hiring for a certain role, which you can actually, it just so happens that you can help fulfill. So if they're hiring a software developer and you're a software development agency, maybe that's the perfect time for you to go and reach out and be like, you would sound natural and say something like, I saw you hiring for a software developer. Did you end up hiring someone? You just want to get to that next step so then they can actually reply and it sounds human. You can go in with a ruthless sell, and I give you examples on how to actually go and do that. But you might want to talk about pain points, or, you would mention a specific case study that you've just done for a recent client. So let's say you're a lead generation agency and you've been working with an accountant, and you then reach out to another accountant and say, hey, I've actually just wrapped up with working with Anthony at ABC accounting firm, and we did X, Y, and Z and delivered this result. Would you be interested in seeing how this could work for you? You want a specific reason to reach out, and there's loads of clever things that you can do on LinkedIn. For example, if we go onto this mutual connection here, this campaign's worked really well for me, where if we go up to the lead list on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can actually find people who are connections of your current connections. So I've run multiple campaigns where I'm connected with, let's say, John, and John is connected with quite a lot of my ideal clients. So I would just say, I would reach out to them and on that mutual connection base and basically say, oh, it's good to see that you're connected with John. I actually worked with him on ABC and helped him deliver ABC outcome. How do you know John? And then, that starts that conversation, and then you sort of get the ball rolling there with those people. And the main goal here is to get them to respond, so then you can actually figure out, okay, are they in the market for my product or service? So there's loads of different examples there. Now, the mechanism. So you can obviously do this manually, and to be honest, if you're starting with LinkedIn and you're not very familiar with it, I would always do all of this manually. So you've got your spreadsheet, and you would use your lead list that you've figured out on LinkedIn, and then you would just go and reach out to people manually, and then you would track everything. But you can use automation tools like Prosp, and I use Prosp. There's loads of other tools that you can use like Expandy or whatever you want to do. But the key thing here is I only use LinkedIn automation to do the heavy lifting. So I just call this semi-automation. So I use Prosp and LinkedIn tools to basically do the heavy lifting. So for example, let's say this lead list that we created here, I think we did real estate agents with 1 to 10 plus years of experience, based in London, company size 1 to 50. And then they've recently posted on LinkedIn. I think there was about 1,000 people in here. That could be a little bit too big, a little bit too broad, but let's say we've got 1,000 or 500 people in this list. Now, I would manually have to go and connect with those people and remember, okay, I only should be sending around 20 connections per day, and then, spreading this out over the course of the time. All I use Prosp for and tools like this is to do the heavy lifting with that. And then also we can use tools like Prosp to go and engage with their profile and sort of warm them up. And I'll come to that, but essentially, for example, this is the cadence of what you would do. This is just one example where you would reach out to people over 2 weeks, so a 14-day period. Now, what I'd be doing is using Prosp to actually day one go and connect with the prospect, and then wait for 1 day, and then go and engage with their profile on day two. So that might be, view their profile, because on LinkedIn you get notified when people view their profile. Or you might go and like one of their posts or something like that. I wouldn't at this stage use the AI comments, because it just looks so spammy and it just looks terrible. Trust me, don't do it. But yeah, you would just use a tool like Prosp to go and do all this heavy lifting, and then maybe send that first message, which is basically just, I've called this a soft opener. It's just like, hey, good to connect. Like, nothing cringy, nothing like, hey, I'd love to connect with like-minded individuals and all that shit. It's just a very soft opener just to open that conversation. So all of that can actually be done manually, automated, and that's where I actually use Prosp. And then we actually get the human to take over. But your mechanism can just be suited to however you want to do things. But here, the mechanism, I've put email in here because I always try and have a follow-up system where we use one main channel. For example, in this training, it's LinkedIn, and then we would follow up with people on email. And then obviously the human here, the stick man here, that is you, who is actually going manually replying to people, manually following up with people. You might be manually sending emails if you haven't got a system like that set up. So I'm going to walk you through the outreach cadence just quickly here, but this is just one example, right? So the whole idea with this 14-day sequence is to make sure that you're sounding human, you're looking human, and you have a reason to reach out, and you're actually following up with people on a different channel, because we cannot just rely on LinkedIn. If you're trying to sell stuff on the platform, maybe your clients are not always on the platform. Obviously, this comes down to your lead list and actually knowing your ICP and understanding, is this person actually going to be on LinkedIn? Presumably you're watching this video because they are, but believe me, you will pick so many more meetings up if you've got a system in place to actually go and follow up with people via a different channel. So let's just walk through this. We'll come to the examples as we go through it. So like I said, on day one, you're obviously going to connect with the prospect. I always just leave this blank as well. So you're going to connect with someone, leave it blank, wait for 1 day, engage with their profile, and then you would have a soft opener, and it would be something like, good to connect, John, whatever. And then again, we're still not actually, pitching people until day 5. So this is key here, because if you just pitch someone, like I was saying to you on that story before, where I would just blast out pictures, and I just can't wait to just get my hands on, sending out messages and booking it in. If you do that, someone's literally accepted your connection request, and then they receive a pitch. So it's like, if you're walking through a shopping mall or whatever it is, and someone just comes up to you, and you can see that they're trying to sell stuff, and they're trying to sell you Wi-Fi or whatever it is. You can just, when they're approaching you, you're like, oh God, get away from me. Even if it's a great offer and what they've got to sell, if they know that you're about to pitch, if you know that they're about to pitch you, you kind of just want to avoid it. So that's what we don't want to happen when we're doing LinkedIn. So on day 5, that is when we would actually explain the trigger. So like the reason for you to go and actually reach out. And that trigger is, these are just a couple of examples that I've just pulled in here from the full training. But, you would mention a key trigger, and that's the main reason. So I'll give you some examples here. So we're waiting essentially a couple of days. So day 5 before we even send a message. So why you're actually reaching out. So for example, you could mention a mutual connection. So you could say something like, saw we're both connected with John. She is great at, accounting, and we just helped them generate, 50 leads this month. Is this something you're exploring at the moment? Or how do you know John? Something like that. We just want to get them to respond, to keep it open. You might mention a case study. So company X is similar to your client. So, the client who you're actually working with, who achieved, 50 leads in 30 days with working with us. Would you be open to seeing how we could get you guys a similar result? And then you could say, would you be open to see, you could say something along the lines of, I could send over a quick video or whatever you want to do. So you can just flex this to however you want. Again, the currently hiring story. So, notice you're currently hiring for a BDM at the moment. I have a quick question. I run a team of BDMs who actually help replace the need for you to go and hire an internal BDM. Would you be open to a quick chat to explore this? Usually we 2x the output of an internal BDM. Something like that, just to pique a bit of curiosity. There's loads of different tricks that you can do. Well, not tricks. These are more so tactics. I tend to speak about, strategy and overall strategy, but I'm just giving you some examples here just to get the brain ticking. And then again, someone may not respond from this, and people need following up. It's all in the follow-ups here. So this looks a bit aggressive, but in reality, it's actually not. The amount of times that the LinkedIn inbox is terrible. If you've used it before, messages just get buried and buried and buried. That's why we actually engage with people's profiles. So on day 6, you engage with the profile, and LinkedIn may serve a notification to that person. So then they're more likely to actually go and click on the profile and be like, okay, well, someone's viewed my profile. Who's this? Oh yeah, he sent me a message a couple of days ago. So it's all in the follow-ups and in the engagement. So day 7, typically, this isn't a sort of fait accompli. You don't have to just follow this step by step, but this is just giving you an idea. But day 7, this is where you might introduce your follow-up channel. So whether it's Twitter, so if you're reaching out to tech founders, you might be using LinkedIn to begin with to start the outreach and engagement. And then you might use X, Twitter, whatever it's called now, to actually go and follow up with those prospects, because that these guys are inside and out of Twitter every single day. So you might reach out to them. But here I've just used email as an example. And here what I tend to do on the follow-up is basically explain, hey, I'm just following up from LinkedIn. So they're like, okay, well, maybe I missed that on LinkedIn, or maybe they actually saw it on LinkedIn and they're like, oh yeah, it was that guy who was reaching out to me about X, Y, and Z. So it's just a follow-up channel. So you can just introduce yourself and very concisely explain what you said in the trigger in here, just to get that conversation going. And then you're not going to follow up. You're going to wait for another day. And then you're going to engage with their profile. And then day 9, you might send another message. So it'd be like, oh, I forgot to mention, and then you would have a second value point. So again, stuff like this, it sounds very human-like. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. And then you would explain maybe a unique selling point, or forgot to mention X, Y, and Z, all related about the actual trigger that you explained. And then obviously you've got your standard nudges, but obviously you don't want to be pushy. My philosophy with everything is basically, you don't want to be pushy. You just want to find out if this person is interested. The reality is, when you're doing marketing, lead generation, no one knows, unless you're a massive a conglomerate business where you've got thousands of employees. No one knows who you are. So we just need to actually get in front of these people without pissing people off. That's what I do. And that's what I do for my clients. And that's what I teach people to do. And then engage with their profile. And then you would say something like, I call these breaker messages. So you can see this is the last LinkedIn message. So I've just called this the final ping. I call this a breaker. So you would basically, you're giving them an opt-out or an opt-in. So you would say something like, look, it's just my final ping on here. I don't want to keep harassing you. If you are interested in X, Y, and Z, or you're interested in whatever trigger you mentioned, then, just reply to this. But no worries. I'll follow up with you on email if it's better for me to actually go and reach out to you there. And, if that's where you are. So you would say something along those lines, and then, you would do a couple of follow-up emails here, just reinforcing your value. And then I call this the email breaker. So you just want to close that loop. And a lot of the time you will actually get responses from these sort of breaker messages or breaker emails, because people are like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it's the last chance. It's the last time he's actually going to reach out to me. I actually was interested. I was just super busy. I was dropping the kids off when I saw the message, or I was stuck in a meeting and I was about to respond, blah, blah, blah. You do get a lot of responses here. So I know that was a lot, but essentially with all of this, if you think about it, you're only sending 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 messages on LinkedIn over 2 weeks or 14 business days, or however you set it up. And then you're sprinkling in a couple of follow-ups on a different channel. And believe me, this is what really gets people booked in. And here on this, where we've got the trigger here, there's loads of other things that you can do, but this is really just the reason as to why you're reaching out. If you're doing Loom videos, this is where you want to be sending the Loom video about, how you can help and whatever it may be. If you're going to do like a free audit for someone, this is where you would send it. If you're going to give someone a lead magnet, this is where you would send it. This is the value. This is the reason why you're reaching out. Again, just don't do it in the connection message. Don't do it in message 1. So Step 5 is basically how to turn the conversations into calls. So the main key points here, which is what I've listed, is be intentional with it. So when you're so you've got the conversations, you're having a conversation with people, this needs to be intentional. We don't want to be sort of dancing around the houses. Yeah, it's good to be friendly, it's good to build rapport, but we want to make it extremely easy for them to go and book a call. And we don't want to sound desperate when we're actually doing this. So we don't want to be like, hey, please book a call. First, we need to find out if they're actually interested in the product or service. Have they got the pain? Have they got the urgency? And then we want to go straight into booking them in. So a lot of the time, I get people and my clients to basically just send 2 different options that would be easy to go and book a call. So you would say, instead of saying, hey, here's my Calendly link, and then they've got to click a time and a date and then put their email address in, I usually just say, are you available on Tuesday at 2 p.m. or Wednesday at 4 p.m.? So you just give them 2 options, and it gives someone an in or an out, and they go, yep, Tuesday works for me. And then you go, cool, yep, what's your email? And then I'll send over the invite. Or if those times don't work, then they will actually usually go and suggest a time that works. Now, these people are busy. You've got to know your audience. So again, if you're reaching out to someone who's relatively techie and you're reaching out to these people, they actually might be used to using an online calendar link like Calendly, and they can just quickly whiz and put their email address in and select a time. But believe me, some people really don't like that when you send over a Calendly link, and it's just hard for them to wrap their head around it. Whereas if you just make it super easy for them and just say, hey, Tuesday 2 p.m, Wednesday 4 p.m, and then they can just go and select a time, or if those don't work, they'll just suggest another time that works. So just some realistic KPIs here. So if you sent 100 connection requests per week, so that's 20 per day, which is the sort of standard as to what you would want to do on LinkedIn, so you don't break their guidelines for 5 days, and you get around generally a 30% connection acceptance rate is pretty good. So that would be 30 new connections per week, and you can send around 150 messages per week. So that's 30 messages per day, roughly, over 5 days. And if you get 20% of those people to reply, that means you'll be getting 30 replies per week. Now, it takes some work to sort of get people to go and book those calls, and this could be lasting over a week or a couple of days, depending on how active they are. But even if you book 15% of those, that's 4 to 5 meetings per week. And if you close 10% of those, which is fairly low from cold outreach, that's 2 deals a month. So that just sort of paints the picture as to, obviously these are just rough numbers, but that sort of paints the picture of how you could actually do everything. And like I was saying, the top link in the description, you've got full video trainings on how to actually go and book leads via LinkedIn. You've got templates, you've got scripts, you've got all the triggers that I spoke about. You've got ChatGPT prompts that you can go and use. You've got templates and obviously the video tutorials as well. So download that, check that out. It's completely for free. And if you do want to shortcut all of this and you don't want to guess and go through the trial and error, and you just want one-on-one support with me, then click the second link in the description and you'll be able to get some more information and then either book a call with me or join us. So I will see you on the next one. Peace.